everybody. Hopefully you can hear me on this scheduled live. So we are talking about our group trip to Alaska in 2023, July 2023, next summer. And this is just an introduction of the group idea, what the itinerary is. So put in the comments if you're having any troubles hearing me. All right. So I just spent 5 weeks in Alaska myself, kind of preparing and choosing the best options for our group trip for next year. And so this is a picture of me at Mendenhall Glacier in Juneau of August 2022, or this month. So just this past week, I was in Juneau. And I also went to Fairbanks, Anchorage, Denali National Park, and the ports on the Inside Passage of Alaska. And if you didn't know, I also used to work on board cruise ships. So I've spent time in Alaska personally in the past when I was a crew member. So I have been to these ports multiple times. This summer was my first time in the interior of Alaska, which was very exciting to go see Denali National Park and learn more about what's available in the interior and why you might want to add that on to a cruise tour if you're already going to do Alaska with a cruise ship. So first we will talk about the itinerary that I picked, which is at the end of July of 2023. So here is the itinerary at a glance. So technically it starts July 19th. That's the official start of the tour. However, I highly, highly recommend that you fly in on the 18th. This allows any airline delays, baggage delays. It just allows you a chance. It's more peace of mind. It's highly stressful if you're trying to fly on the 19th, the day that our tour starts, because we are leaving Fairbanks on the morning of the 20th. So you are not there. We unfortunately would have to leave and you'd have to kind of catch up to the tour independently, which would be no fun. It would be complicated. So it would just help out if you are able to fly on the 18th, plus those flying from the East Coast. It's actually quite a long way to travel. It's all the way across the country. So when I just went, I had a layover in Texas and then a 7-hour flight from Texas to Anchorage. Although the tour that I picked has a start in Fairbanks, and I can tell you why I chose that instead of Anchorage. It's to cut down on the transportation time. So right here, this top pin is rough. These are kind of approximations of location, but the top pin is Fairbanks. The next one down is Denali National Park area. Then down from there is Anchorage. And then we would get on the ship just east of Anchorage and go down the Inside Passage, which was where these other 3 pins are located. So that would be Skagway, Juneau, and Ketchikan. Plus we have scenic cruising days to Hubbard Glacier and to Glacier Bay National Park. So I'll cover those in a little bit more detail later. And then we end in Vancouver, Canada. So you can choose to fly out when we get off the ship in Vancouver, or you could extend your time and stay in Vancouver an extra night or a few days. So in Fairbanks, on the night of the 19th, your hotel would be included. So one thing with the land tours is that food is not included automatically. You can get a food package if you would like, or you can do your own thing, try in local restaurants and things like that. Or you can get the food package. There's different options. You could do breakfast only. You could do just breakfast and dinner, or you could do breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you wanted to, if you kind of wanted your costs known ahead of time. But I did enjoy the local food. So you can't really go wrong either way. It's just your preference. So on the night of the 19th, since we're a group, we would have just sort of our group meetup. We could see if people are interested in doing a group dinner. It'll depend on what everybody wants to do. And then the morning of the 20th, we would take this riverboat tour in Fairbanks. So you get to see a float plane land and take off right next to the riverboat, which is pretty cool. You get to see a sled dog demonstration from the riverboat with a very interesting story about this woman who won the Iditarod many times, and it's her kennel. So a really interesting story there. And then you get to see a replica of a native Alaskan village. You get to see their fishing wheel and how they catch salmon and how they prepare the salmon, which is pretty cool. And then this is just a picture of the hotel in Fairbanks. And then after we do that tour, we then drive about 3.5 hours south in a bus, a nice coach bus, to Denali National Park. So the other thing with the land tour is that they transfer your luggage from place to place. So you would kind of just have your carry-on bag, and then your larger bag is transferred for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So someone asked, this is included in the price? Yes, the riverboat tour that I'm talking about is included in the price. So everybody in the group would get to do that all together. And from that tour, we would head south to Denali National Park. So it is a really great tour. It was ranked one of the best tours in Alaska multiple years in a row. And then once we get to Denali National Park, we have that afternoon, you have free time. You can check out the resort. It's here in the mountains. It's a very beautiful setting. It's very close to Denali National Park. You could even walk along trails. If you really wanted to get to the park that very first day, you could walk there. And there are free shuttles that take you to the National Park Visitor Center. So the Visitor Center does close, I think it was around 6 p.m. I'd have to double check on the exact times. So you may or may not be able to get there in time for the Visitor Center that first day, but it's a really beautiful setting just in the resort that we'd be staying at. So there's some nice common areas here. There was live music playing. You can get us some Morris kit and hang out by the fire outside. You can purchase tickets to this singing, dancing buffet meal if you'd like. That's not included, but you can purchase that extra. You can walk across the street to what they call Glitter Gulch. It's a row of restaurants, shops, things like that. So if you wanted to eat at a local place, you could do that. There's a very good brewery and pizza place there. So that's an option. There's also very good restaurants at the resort, and you can walk to the resort next door as well, or take a shuttle, and the food there is very good as well. And then the following morning, it's an early morning. So a lot of these might be kind of early mornings, but it's an advantage for those on the East Coast because Alaska time is about 4 hours behind Eastern time. So even if our bus tour was picking us up at 6 a.m. from the resort in Denali, your body would kind of feel like it's 10 a.m. So it doesn't feel so early when you're coming from East Coast time. And then this picture here is of me at Denali National Park, right at the turnaround. So right now there was a landslide at mile 45 in the park. So the buses can only go to about mile 43. So they go in as far as they can go. It's a guided tour. It's on a converted school bus, but they put in more comfortable seats. So it's not like the standard school bus seats that you might be used to when you're a kid. And this view here is of the rest stop. So you take the bus about an hour and a half. They're giving narration the whole time. You have nice views around. You have a chance of seeing the peak of Denali, which is the tallest peak in North America. However, visitors only see the peak, or visitors only see part of the peak about 30% of the time, and only 10% of visitors will see the entire peak unobstructed. So just keep that in mind. I think the nice part of Denali is just seeing this open wilderness. They call it a designated wilderness, and there's not actually trails once you get past mile marker 13, because at that point it becomes designated wilderness area, where most national parks that I've been to in the past, they have trails and maps and things for you to follow. They don't have designated trails in here. You can walk along the road, or you can walk along these river channels if you wanted to go out and explore. So you can actually do that from our guided bus tour. You could choose to leave the bus when it gets to its mile 43, where it has to turn around, and then you could pick up another shuttle bus on the way back. So if you wanted to get some hiking, you could do that. All right. And then you'd have that afternoon and evening to have some free time. You could do another excursion if you wanted. You could get off the bus at the visitor center and do some other excursions if you wanted. So that would be up to you. The following day, we would be taking the Scenic Train into Anchorage. So it's the dome rail car where you have a nice view the whole way. or you have the dome rail car the whole way, you do have an assigned seat, so you can't necessarily pick if you're going to get right next to the window. Unfortunately, I can't choose that for you. It just gets assigned to us. But I was not assigned a window seat right next to the window, but it's 2 and 2. So you're going to be right next to the person at the window seat. And like I said, the rail car, it's domed glass like this. So everybody has a good view on the train. Plus, people get up and they walk around. And there is a dining car. So you could bring food on with you, or you could just eat in the dining car, which I had lunch in the dining car, and it was very good, actually. So you go one level down. These cars that you sit in, you're on the second level. So you do have to walk up a narrow set of stairs to get up to this scenic seat, and then go down the stairs to get to the dining area. And it's about 8.5 hours on the Scenic Train. So it's an all-day train trip. And then from there, we would have a night in Anchorage. So you get a chance to explore Anchorage, try some of the good restaurants. And I definitely recommend having reservations for restaurants in Anchorage. There's this really cute visitor center that's like an old log cabin with this grass on the roof. And the landscaping there is just so beautiful. And even though it's an 8-hour trip, 8.5-hour trip getting to Anchorage, the sun doesn't set even in July. I looked outside of my door at 11 p.m. and there was still sunlight. It's still bright out. So you don't have to worry about that. You'll have daylight to go and explore if you're interested in doing that. There's a nice coastal trail as well. And then from Anchorage, we would take a tour. Well, looks like I might be a bit frozen. Okay. So Whittier is the cruise port. It would be not that far from Anchorage. Okay, there we go. Had to unplug and replug the webcam. So Whittier is it's a scenic way from Anchorage. You follow the coast. And so you have nice views on that trip as well. You go through a long tunnel and then you end up in Whittier. Whittier, the only options for cruises out of Alaska is Whittier or Seward. And Whittier is closer to Anchorage, so it's a bit more convenient. And then the ship itself, I have us going with Holland America Line because they have been in Alaska for 75 years. And so they were kind of the first cruise line to get into Alaska. They have a lot of experience. They kind of know how to do Alaska well. They have a naturalist on board. They are one of only 2 cruise lines a day get to go to Glacier Bay National Park, and Holland America is pretty much almost always has one of those permits to go into Glacier Bay. So here's a picture of a balcony cabin and the scenic cruising and the ships itself. And I also like them because they're sort of more smaller, mid-sized ships. About 2,100 passengers is the maximum capacity that they take. So I don't like ships that are too much bigger than that personally. So I think that's a good size. And then from there, we have 2 full days of scenic glacier cruising. So these pictures are from Glacier Bay National Park. So the first full day, we will have an afternoon of scenic sailing by Hubbard Glacier. And then the following day, we have an entire day of scenic sailing at Glacier Bay National Park. And like I said, only 2 ships can even come into Glacier Bay National Park per day. So we would be one of those. And so with that, National Park Rangers come on board and they give presentations. They have Q&A that you can meet them in the morning, and then they give presentations where they're over the microphones on the loudspeakers. It doesn't go into your room, but you can turn on the TV to hear the sound from your room. So if you want to just view it from your balcony, you could do that. Or you could go up to what they call the crow's nest, which is the scenic viewing area on the top forward of the ship. And it's just a really amazing day. You can see multiple glaciers. This one here is Marjorie Glacier. And that's pretty much the whole day. And the rangers will be there. You can ask them your questions. So it really is very special to be able to do that. And then from there, Skagway would be our first port day. And it is a full port. You get multiple hours in this port. It was an old gold mining town. So it's kind of cute, just the buildings here. And then what I plan to do that day is to do the White Pass Rail. So it's a very interesting excursion. I haven't been able to do it before, but it's always gotten high remarks from people that have done it before. And I had a client go this year, and I asked her, did she think it was worth doing this White Pass Rail when she had already done the Scenic Train between Anchorage and Denali? And she said yes, because it was different and you learn more about the history, more in addition to the scenery. So, but there's other things to do in Skagway, but that would be my #1 recommendation. And it doesn't take all day. So you could do that tour, and then you could do other tours. You could wander around the town and explore on your own. It's up to you. And then the next port that we go to is Juneau. So Juneau is the capital of Alaska, and it's unique because it has no roads in and out. The only way to get there is by plane or by sea. So a lot of the cruise ships come here, and we get to dock right in the downtown area, so you can walk around and explore. This is a picture, the bottom picture of the downtown. There's lots of restaurants, shops. There's a tram, which you can see right here in the background, that you can take the tram up and have a nice lookout of the whole area. You could also take a tour to Mendenhall Glacier. This is Mendenhall Glacier National Park Visitor Center. And this right here, the waterfall is Nugget Falls. So you can take about one way, about 20-25 minutes walk to Nugget Falls and check that out. There were icebergs in the water, even in August. So it's kind of cool to see that. And you get a little bit closer to the glacier. You have some better viewpoints of it from some areas in the visitor center. It's also a great spot for whale watching. So if you wanted to do a whale watching tour, Juneau might be the place for you to go and do that. And then the last full port day is Ketchikan. So it's a very cute town. It's very good for shopping. If you wanted to do shopping for souvenirs, it has lots of shops. It also has fishing and crabbing tours that you can do. There's a lumberjack show. There's a totem pole village that you can go check out. This bottom picture is Creek Street. So it was the old red light district of Ketchikan. So it has a lot of history here, and it's just very cute to walk through because it's up on these boardwalks, stilt area, and it's an easy walk from where the cruise ships dock. So that's Ketchikan. And then we have one more day, a sea day, scenic cruising. You get to relax after all this activity that you've had. Holland America offers a lot of different activities during the day. So they have things like trivia, they have cooking shows, demonstrations, they have live music, bingo. You can check out the spa. You can just relax in your room. So lots of different options for you there. You could even do the shopping on the ship or gambling if you want to check out the casino. And then our last day would be ending in Vancouver, Canada. So this would be leaving the ship in the morning. You can have breakfast and then leave the ship, and then you can either fly home or you can spend some extra time in Vancouver. So I recommend not booking any flights home until afternoon. You don't want an early morning flight because it takes some time to get off the ship, get through customs and immigration, and then you have to travel to the airport. So definitely don't book anything too early, and that's something I can help you with, or look at your options to your home airport. All right, and then I'll open it up for questions. And all right, let me see what questions we have here. So Norwegian offers free upgrades. Does Holland? It would probably depend on your status, and it would depend on how full the ship is. So I'm not sure. I just went on Norwegian, and we could bid for an upgrade, but we weren't automatically given a free upgrade, but we could do a bid. So it's kind of hard to say whether free upgrades would be available or not, and they may not be free with Holland. And are the accommodations on the land all under the tour? So yes, the accommodations for Fairbanks on the 19th, one night in Fairbanks. So we would need to look at adding on an extra night on the 18th for you to fly in a day early, which I definitely recommend. But it is included on the 19th, the 20th and the 21st. It's included in the Denali National, Denali, it's not within the national park, but it's outside the entrance of the national park. So the Denali Resort is included. So that's the shuttles around the resort, the shuttles to the national park, the guided bus tour, that's all included. And then accommodation in Anchorage is included in the land tour as well. And then we join the cruise ship where your accommodation on the ship is included and all the food on the ship. So if you missed earlier in the presentation, food is not included on the land tour. You can pre-purchase a food package if you want to do that. There's options like breakfast only, breakfast and dinner, or all three meals. So it's up to you if you want to have that cost known ahead of time, because if you buy the package, you get kind of a discount on what you would pay a la carte. But it's up to you if you want to check out local places. There are restaurants within walking distance of all of those resorts in Fairbanks, Denali, and Anchorage if you wanted to try out some local places to eat. Let's see, I haven't seen any other questions coming in. So if you have a question, I'll just give you a chance to type that in. So I'll give you a little bit more about Holland America. They also have 2 formal nights. And in Alaska, it's a little bit more flexible just because people are there more for the scenery than the cruise line itself. And so formal nights, they will have a dress code for the evening restaurants and things like that. All right, I got another comment. So if someone books through Norwegian, they get drinks, restaurants, free Wi-Fi. Well, it's your preference. So I think that Holland America does a very excellent job in Alaska. If you have a preference for Norwegian, then I can help you with that as well. I just came off of a Norwegian ship, but I prefer Holland America and what they offer compared to what I just experienced with Norwegian, especially times in ports, etc. So the cost per person is going to depend on which cabin type you want on the ship. So I have it written down. So for the land and sea combination, if you wanted an inside cabin, and I've added in the taxes and fees, it would be, and this is based on double occupancy, the way that cruise lines do their costs. So they base it on 2 people per room. So if you were a solo person wanting a room to yourself, you would have to pay extra, or you would kind of have to pay the cost as if it was 2 people almost. So with 2 people, for an inside cabin, it starts at about $3,100 per person. And if you want a balcony cabin, it starts at about $4,200 per person. So there's also ocean view in there that you can choose, and there's different levels of balconies. So some are better than others based on location around the ship. Higher decks usually may cost a little bit more because you get a little bit of a better view, or the ones towards the center of the ship, the middle, tend to cost a little bit more too, because if you're prone to seasickness, those are a little bit more stable. All right, let me see if there's any other questions that are coming in. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about the luggage transfers so much with the land tour. So when you show up, you kind of are just responsible for your carry-on item on the land tour. You could even bring a separate luggage with you with your formal outfits. So if you wanted to have a suit or a dress and nice shoes, you don't really need that on the land tour. You would want that on the cruise ship though. So you could have a whole separate bag just for things that you want on the ship. And that then you don't even have to worry about that whole bag at all when you get there. And then for your carry-on, there's definitely limited room on that Scenic Train. So even just there's no overhead bin because it's a glass dome the whole way. So you want kind of especially a smaller bag on the Scenic Train day, unless you're okay with your backpack or bag by your feet. There's not a lot of storage room there. But your larger bag, like your roller bag, you put outside of your door at the hotel, and it's picked up by the luggage crew, and they transfer it separately, and it just shows up in your room at the next place that you go to. So in Fairbanks, it would get picked up in the morning of the 20th, and it would just be delivered directly to your room in Denali, so you don't have to worry about carting your bigger bag around, which is nice. So you don't have access to stuff in that until maybe later in the evening, but you don't have to worry about carting it around, loading in a bus, or loading in a train. It's taken care of for you, which is a nice perk. Okay, how can I find out about the food package for on land? You can just contact me about that, and I can kind of price everything out for you if you want to look at that as an option. And price ranges for airlines, it's going to depend on where you're flying from. So that I'm not really sure. So say if you live in Seattle, it's going to cost a lot less to fly to Fairbanks, probably, than somewhere on the East Coast. So that's just going to depend where you're flying from, if you're near a hub or a smaller airport. And so flights now should have just come out, except for Southwest, because they only book about 6 months out. But you can actually even start looking at flight prices now and start tracking them to just keep an eye on what they are, get a ballpark of what they look like right now. So I can help you figure that out. So from Maine, I'm not sure. I would have to look at the exact dates and see what those are. But this summer, when I went round trip, well, I did a multi-trip destination like you would be doing, because it wouldn't be round trip flights. It would be one way to Fairbanks, then one way from Vancouver. So this summer I paid about $800 for that, for both of the, for total, for the 2 flights per person. All right. And then, does the cost of the cruise include the land part of the tour? Yes, the cost that I mentioned is for both that land tour and the cruise. So pretty much everything from July 19th through July 30th is included in that cost that I said. Accommodation, the transportation, the only thing missing would be food on the land portion. But food on the cruise line, that's all included. Unless you have a specialty item like a specialty steak or specialty lobster, there's usually an upcharge for that. But yes, those prices that I mentioned include the land part, the accommodation, the tours that I mentioned, like the riverboat tour in Fairbanks and the guided narrated bus tour into Denali, the Scenic Train, and the transfer to the cruise ship. That's all included in that cost that I had mentioned. Okay, I'll wait to see if I get any other questions coming in. But I just wanted to say, too, why you might consider traveling with me rather than traveling maybe independently with another cruise line. So if you have questions, you can easily reach me, phone call, email, text message, and I'll get back to you very quickly. If you have to call the cruise line for questions, you're probably going to be on hold for at least an hour. So you can just call me and get an answer much faster and easier. For those that want to join the trip, we can do some Zoom calls before the trip, so we kind of get to know each other a little bit in advance. We'll also have meetups during the trip. So I would want to do group dining reservations, kind of standing on the cruise line, and we can also have a group meetup the very first day of the group tour. I can give you recommendations for restaurants, shore excursions. Like I said, I've been to these ports multiple times. So I give you recommendations on that and help you make the most of your trip. Because a lot of people, this might be the only time they ever go to Alaska. With the group pricing, depending on the number of people, the more people that book, the more perks that we all get as a group.
since I will be on the trip as well, I'll be your advocate, like right there in person to help. If there's any issues that come up or questions about what's happening with the itinerary, you can just ask me instead of having to go to customer service at the hotel or the cruise line. So I help you with that. And like I said, I've been there multiple times, and I just did the land trip, and I really do think that it is worthwhile to do the land trip in addition to the inside passage. You kind of get to see how expansive Alaska is. You get to see that Denali National Park. Whether or not you get to see the peak, it's just going to depend on the weather. But the park itself, you have a chance of seeing wildlife like moose, bears, caribou, Dall sheep. There's Arctic squirrels, wolves. We didn't see any wolves, but we did see moose. We saw bears, we saw the Dall sheep, and we saw caribou, all in Denali National Park. So if you want to see wildlife, it is a great experience to go to the national park. Okay, when would we have to commit? So I am holding group space, and they do pull it from me if I'm not filling it or if we don't have a commitment. I think I lose it by February. But with looking at airfare and everything else, deposits are refundable. So if you want to choose the category, the balcony or the inside cabin, if you want to know exactly how that is, because I will tell you that Alaska cruises are very popular and the best cabins will fill up early. So because we are going one way, there is a side of the ship that I recommend that your cabin be on for best views while we sail. And those tend to book up early. So if you think you're interested and you want, just reach out to me and I can give you exact pricing for the cabin type you want, or a range of prices so you can kind of see the differences between different cabin types. Pretty much the price of the whole trip is dependent on which category of cabin you want on the cruise. So the hotels are going to be about the same on the land portion, but on the cruise ship, your cabin type is really going to dictate the price of the whole package, because balconies and suites, they're going to cost the most, and the inside cabins with no windows, those are going to cost the least. So that really dictates the price of the whole trip, is the type of cabin that you want on the ship. And I do think it is very nice to have a balcony in Alaska because there is a lot of scenery, and it's a place you can go away from the crowds, especially on those Glacier scenic cruising days. If there's a lot of people crowding the forward areas of the ship, you can at least go to your balcony, and the ship will rotate fully around, even once or even twice around those glaciers. So you could hang out on your balcony if you wanted. But if price is a concern and you just really want to go on the trip and you're okay with going to the public areas to see the glaciers and see the other scenic cruising areas, because you'll see that from the dining rooms. You'll see it just walk around the ship. There's upper decks. There's lots of places you can see the scenery if you don't want to pay the price for a balcony. So it's personal preference. You can't really go wrong because you'll be able to make the most of the trip either way. So to commit, if you want the very best rooms, like first option of location and side of the ship, I do recommend at least putting down your deposit soon. Like I said, it is refundable. So if you decide by the final payment deadline that for some reason you can't go or something comes up, you get that money back. So I hope that helps. And I think that was the last question that I see. So I'll wait just a minute to see if any other ones come in. But I think Alaska is really great. And like I said, in July, there's still the midnight sun. So it's very cool just to experience that. It was still kind of bright twilight out in the middle of the night. And it is chilly. So when I was there, it was in the 50s and 60s mainly. So layers are very important. It can be wet, especially in the inside passage where the cruise goes. That is their summer. It's a temperate rainforest. So that means they do get a lot of rain. And actually in Ketchikan, we learned that they measure the amount of rainfall they get in terms of feet, not inches. Just they get that much rain. So expect that it could be rainy I will give you a packing list and things like that. So definitely rain jacket, umbrella, layers, shoes that you don't mind getting wet. So that would be my recommendation. I do give you a packing list. I give you recommendations on tours and things like that. So just let me know if you are interested. You can send me an email. You can message me on Facebook. I'll keep an eye out for that. If you have more questions, want exact pricing for what you're looking for, then we can go over all of that. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today, and have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon.